So, what would it actually take for the Middle East to just explode into a full blown global conflict? Today, we're going to walk through a pretty terrifying scenario where one single spark sets the entire world on fire. And it all kicked off with this one dramatic declaration. We're talking about a direct attack on the absolute heart of the global energy market. It triggered a chain reaction that, honestly, went from 0 to 100 in just a matter of hours. All right, so how does a spark in one region become this out-of-control global fire? Well, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with that initial spark in the Gulf, then we'll look at America's, let's just say, less than prepared entry into the war. We'll see how it spiraled from a regional conflict to a global one, and then we'll get into the really interesting part, Iran's asymmetric strategy. And finally, we'll ask the big question, what happens next? Okay, let's dive into our first section. The story really begins with a targeted, and I mean undeniable, attack on Saudi Arabia. This was an act that just blew past a line many people thought would never, ever be crossed. And the speed of the escalation, it was just shocking. I mean, look at this timeline. At hour 0, Iran hits Saudi Aramco. Just 2 hours later, Saudi Arabia hits back. By hour 6, the attacks have spread all over the region: Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar. And by hour 8, the Strait of Hormuz is shut down. This was not a slow burn, not at all. It was an instant explosion. In less than half a day, a fight between two countries had pulled in the entire Gulf. And the economic fallout? Oh, it was immediate, and it was devastating. I mean, think about it. By shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, Iran basically put a chokehold on the world's energy supply. We're talking 20 million barrels of oil per day. That's a massive chunk of what the world runs on. But this brings up a really crucial question, right? Why would Iran attack everyone? I mean, they even hit nations like Qatar and Oman, places that were trying to act as diplomatic go-betweens, pleading for calm. It doesn't make sense from a conventional military perspective. There's something else going on here. So, with the whole region basically in flames, all eyes, of course, turned to the United States, the traditional security guarantor. But, and this is a big but, when America finally did get pulled in, it found itself on the back foot fast. And here's why. You see this huge, dangerous gap between the political promises and the military reality. On one hand, you had President Trump claiming the war would be over in 4 more weeks. But on the other hand, the Pentagon's actual deployment, it was only designed for a 10-day campaign. That's a massive disconnect. And the price for that miscalculation? It was paid almost instantly. I mean, look at these losses in just the first 72 hours. We're talking 3 American fighter jets downed, U.S. pilots captured, soldiers killed, a carrier group targeted, and 6 critical military installations damaged. It just goes to show how truly unprepared the U.S. was for what Iran was throwing at them. And this quote, reportedly from President Trump to his generals, really gets to the heart of the whole problem. This was supposed to be a one-and-done operation. See, the U.S. was planning for a quick, clean, punitive strike. But Iran? They came back with a plan for a long, drawn-out, painful war. Now, a fire this intense was never going to stay contained for long. It was only a matter of time before the shockwaves broke out of the Middle East and started rocking capitals all around the globe. And this was the moment it officially went global. The second Iranian missiles hit British bases in Cyprus, it stopped being a regional issue. Suddenly, you've got Britain declaring war. France is moving its aircraft carrier into position. Let that sink in. You now have 3 nuclear-armed NATO nations actively engaged in a war with Iran. You can probably guess what happened next. The global markets went into a full-blown panic. With the world's most important shipping lanes and pipelines now a war zone, the price of oil started a climb that was both steep and very painful for everyone. And you could just feel the fear rippling through the financial system. Investors were dumping everything else and running to the one thing they trust in a crisis: gold. The price just skyrocketed. That is a textbook sign of deep global panic. And it wasn't just numbers on a screen either. The crisis paralyzed the physical world too. A huge hub for international travel was just shut down. We're talking over 2,000 commercial flights canceled, airspace closed. It ground regional travel to a complete halt, stranding people and cargo all over the planet. Okay, so this brings us to the absolute core of Iran's strategy. Because let's be real, they know they can't win a straight-up, conventional military fight against the US and its allies. The numbers just don't add up. So their plan is something way more subtle and maybe, just maybe, a lot more effective. And here it is. This is the whole game. Iran's objective isn't military victory. They know that's impossible. Their real goal is to inflict so much political pain that President Trump loses the next election. It's a political war, not a military one. I mean, look at the difference here. The U.S. is focused on traditional military aims, degrading enemy forces, capturing territory, winning on the battlefield. But Iran's aims are totally different. They want to spike U.S. gas prices. They want to create American casualties to dominate the news cycle. Why? To damage the president's No More Foreign Wars brand. It's genius, in a terrifying way. And this whole strategy puts America's Gulf allies in a terrible, terrible bind. I mean, they're the ones getting hit right now, but they're hesitant to go all in and formally declare war. And the reason is simple. They just don't trust that America will stick around for the long haul. It all comes down to this one paralyzing question that leaders in the region are asking themselves. What happens the day after? They have to live there. They have to survive long after the American aircraft carriers sail away. And that is a terrifying calculation to have to make. And this is where we reach the final section. Because at this point in the crisis, we've basically gone off the map. We are now in a zone of total, complete unpredictability. Every expert model, every prediction, it's all been shattered. This whole thing is just moving way too fast for anyone to keep up. All the old playbooks, all the think tank models about how Iran would act or how the US would respond, they're totally worthless now. We are in completely uncharted territory. And as if things weren't tense enough, Iranian state television drops this bombshell. A great surprise for the world is coming shortly. Just think about that. What on earth could that mean? A cyber attack? Something worse? The not knowing, the uncertainty, that becomes a weapon in itself. Which leaves us with this one final chilling thought. What happens when a country decides it has absolutely nothing left to lose? What happens to the rules of war then? We might be witnessing a conflict where every single red line we thought existed is about to be crossed, and every rule is about to be broken.